Hey, it's Friday, it's MYT, and it's me, Paul Nolan, the owner and founder of Make Your Transition, and we're continuing the 4-week journey into Mixdown Mastery with part 2 this week, which is on mid-side processing. This is something that is often misunderstood by a lot of music producers and audio engineers as well. So it's going to be great to demystify all of that for you right now. So let's waste no more time. Let's jump straight into Ableton Live 10.1, the new beta, and see what's going on with mid-side processing. Okay, so here we are in Live 10.1, the new beta version of Ableton Live, whichever way you want to say it. And we're going to obviously demystify middle and sides. And you can achieve quite a lot with middle and sides just using included plugins in Ableton. And we're going to use the utility plugin for breaking this whole thing open, because if you take a utility plugin like this, and if you right click on the width control, you can actually swap it between a stereo width control and a mid-side balance mode, which means if I pull the fader all the way to the left here, you can see I can make the signal 100% mono, or I can make it 100% stereo by moving the fader or the rotary control to the other side here. So this now breaks open a lot of possibility, because it means that if I were to pull over to the mono side here and we play this sound that we have going here, which is like a kind of a synth sound, we can start to split up the signal into either mono or stereo or middle and sides. Middle and sides is just a different way of monitoring and processing audio based on the splits of signals in a stereo file. So where in a stereo file you have nominal left and right, or say for example in a mono file you just get the one channel, which is again the sum total of the left and right put together. In a middle and sides type of regime, you get access to both the mono version, which is everything that's panned right down the middle or is completely mono, or you get the sides or the stereo, which is the information that is not panned in the middle with the mono information taken out. So you can separate them, you can process them separately, you can monitor them separately, which can be quite important for the mixdown. So if we were to play the track here, it's a nice rich arpeggio with a lot of harmonic content in. You'll be able to listen to this in full stereo at the moment. And then I'll pull that into the mono, play it from there. And the difference is subtle between the mono and the stereo sections, or the mono and the whole file, if you will. You can just hear there's that extra little bit of width. Now, if you're watching either on a laptop or a smartphone, or not listening on studio monitor speakers, I'd highly recommend plugging in headphones for the rest of this, because it's really great to be able to hear the rest of it in the correct context. So if I was to pull the middle and side balance out to just stereo now, you'll be able to hear everything else that's not in mono. And as I've moved that all the way over to mono again, you can really hear the difference, where it's almost as if a lot of like the spatial elements like reverb, for example, or delays are all out to the sides in the stereo section of the track. And then the main synth line and the notes, the transients, if you will, are all in the middle. So we can now process these signals in very, very interesting ways. And what we've done is we've developed a couple of Ableton racks for you to download. One of them is a mid-side EQ, and the other one is a mid-side compressor. Now, EQ8 in Ableton can already perform mid-side EQ. All you have to do is change the mode here. If I switch this EQ on, you can switch the mode between middle and sides. Now, to have those two curves, I always found them a little bit confusing, so I've separated them out, utilizing a utility plugin, and a couple of chains here where I've got all mono going through one chain and all stereo going through another. The great thing that this rack will give you is the additional controls of the utility, which means that you've also got the ability to use the mono maker here, or the bass mono as it's known, where we can take a frequency. Let's say, for example, I usually set it to 300 in the mixdown, and then from there everything below 300 hertz gets taken from everywhere in the whole stereo file, if you will, and gets sucked into the mono. So it guarantees that our low end is in mono, which for club play is absolutely critical. So you can set that here for the mono, and also as well you can set, if I move over to the mono section, it's color coded, you can set a high pass filter here just using the macro control, and again on the stereo as well. So this can be quite useful. So if I was to set this to 300 for the mono maker, I would then set the stereo high pass filter to 300 as well, and then based on what I was doing in the mixdown, I would set the mono high pass filter to the relevant frequency to roll the bottom end off in order to make it sit well with like sub basses or kicks or anything like that. But what's also great is because we've got this chain situation going on here, I can then solo or mute the mono or the stereo, meaning that I can monitor it individually and then EQ it at any time. So a practical application of this would be to listen to the mono on its own, and as you can hear, I'm just rounding and blending down the mono section into a low end, into a frequency range from about 50 hertz up to, you know, about a K and a half here with the low pass filter here, and then giving a little bit of a bump in the low end. Now what that will do is allow me in the stereo section to push or highlight the higher end elements, or the more sparkly, more airy, more spacious, more high mid elements out to the sides, which will increase perceived width. So whilst not actually creating any more stereo width in the track itself. So if we listen to the stereo section on its own here, and you can just hear as the cutoffs and as the frequencies increase, as the arpeggio builds, it gets wider and then it gets more mono as the frequencies reduce, because we're highlighting those frequencies in the stereo section rather than in the mono. So it is a really great way of repositioning the frequency information across the stereo field to make things sound wider without necessarily adding width, which can lead to phase problems. The other way you can work is with compression. So what we've done is make another rack here which has an integrated glue compressor. So here we can obviously use the mono maker as per usual, 300 hertz, but now we've got not only an EQ, we've also got a glue compressor on both the mono and the stereo parts, which means not only can I now obviously shift those frequencies into a particular area, I can then compress the middle and the sides by different ratios and different amounts in order to control dynamic range at different parts of the signal at different times. So let's just listen to that, because it'll really help to bring out the particularly the mono section of the signal as we go along, because I'll start to compress the sides a little bit more. So if we just add in our low pass and high pass filters here, I'll then actually just do a little bump with a high shelf at the top end. So let's have a listen to that. And again, provides a little bit of sparkle in the top end in the stereo as well. Now, what I can also do is then pass this into the compressor and then roll back with threshold here. And as this sound gets a little bit more aggressive, if you will, if I move this on a bit more. And you can see the gain reduction meter on the glue compressor is registering around about 5 dB, which means I can then add 5 dB of makeup gain. From there, I would then move into the stereo section. And then if I wanted to, as this track gets more and more sort of dynamic and higher in volume, I could either make it more mono by compressing more on the stereo, or I could make it more wide and more stereo, depending upon what kind of creative goals I have. So from here, I can use the stereo threshold. And you can hear there's very little difference now between the mono and the stereo signals, because I've allowed the mono to come to the fore utilising the 5 dB of makeup gain, which I've not added into the stereo sections compressor. And I could easily flip that by hitting 5 dB makeup, 0 on the mono, again 5 dB on the stereo, and then you'll be able to hear this as it goes along. And you can just hear a little dip in volume there, because I can actually control the levels of the respective chains as well, which makes for a very useful and actually quite complete middle and side processor. So there you go, that's middle and sides theoretically demystified, and a couple of free tools there for you to go with. So there you have it, mid-side processing demystified. And the EQ and compressor racks that you saw me use in the tutorial are available for free download. All you have to do is go into the description underneath this video where I'm pointing and click the link. While you're down there, so to speak, you could also hit the subscribe and the notification bell icon as well, so you never miss a video from MYT. Just so you know, we're going to do videos like this every Friday anyway, and next week we're into week 3 of the Mixdown Mastery series. I hope you can join me. Until then, take care, speak to you soon, bye bye.